In December of 2025, I released an episode with an expletive-riddled rant about the corruption that's happening in the real estate industry. They've single-handedly exacerbated the housing affordability crisis by knowingly putting the wrong people out there to help you with it. They're licensing dangerously undertrained realtors and lenders, and then they're offering up to you as qualified professionals. They choose profits over quality service, and millions of renters are losing life-changing wealth because when they talk to the people that they think are qualified professionals, they're getting bad information, incomplete information. And well, that pissed me off back then, and it still does today, so here I go again. The real solutions are attainable, so it's time for some hope.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is happening, my How to Buy a Homies? I'm David Sidoni, and I am still more than just a little miffed about the raw deal that you've been getting. But fear not, this episode is jam-packed with all of the proper math, the data, and the analytics that's going to demystify home buying's biggest obstacle, the down payment. Now, you might have heard that first-time homebuyers can't afford to buy a home in this market. The numbers are down. The average first-time homebuyer is freaking 40 years old. And most renters, well, they're stuck because they think they need a big down payment to, number one, even get approved for a home loan, and then number two, to create a monthly payment that's going to be low enough that they can afford it. Bullshit. Sorry, but I am still raging about this epic fail on the part of the lazy and greedy real estate industry. They're gatekeeping the American dream by ignoring you first-time homebuyers and not providing you with the complete information. You do have options, and one of your best tools is using the many proven and affordable low down payment strategies. And the math, it is way better than most people believe it is. So let's talk about the low down payment possibilities. This information, to use an overused term, is game-changing. The facts are not only surprising, but they'll be uplifting for you as well, because there's optimistic math for everybody. And buyers should consider this looking at their whole picture. Whether you're someone who's got 20% or even 30% down ready to go right now and you're trying to figure out what to do, or if you're sitting there with only 1% and you think you've got no shot. When it comes to down payments, let me start with this eye-opening fact. Take a guess right now at the average down payment used by everybody to buy a house in the United States. Everybody, not just first-time homebuyers. And before you guess, let me give you this information and see if this changes your guess. Over the last couple of years, the homeowner equity, the money that people have as extra profit in their house, it's at $310,000. And 54% of buyers who are trading up, they use that equity to buy their next home. Now, a $300,000 down payment, that's 20% on a home that's $1.5 million. And right now, the guesstimate, looking at some of the data on what a trade-up home costs, what we did was we looked at 2,000 square feet home because 1,600 is considered a starter home. But 2,000, that's a trade-up home. So these people have $300,000 they're going to bring into their next purchase. And those trade-up homes, the 2,000 square foot homes, the average across America is about $550,000, not $1.5 million. So now that you know that information, take your guess. What's the average across all of U.S. when they're putting a down payment on a home? Say it out loud right now, wherever you are. I don't care if you look stupid at the gym. Say it. All right, that's a good guess, but the answer is 15%. And that's down from 16.1% last year. That's everybody, including people with $300,000 to buy their trade-up home. A Redfin survey of these buyers reported why down payments are dropping. Buyers said it was cooling price growth, it was a rise in low down payment products, and a better buyer's market with less pressure to compete in the bidding wars. So today's buyers, they're using affordable low down payment options to hold on to their cash. That's the key, because they want to use leverage to grow their financial stability. And we can all learn a lesson from that. And for today's first-time home buyers, it's not even 15%. The most recent data shows the average first-time home buyer down payment right now in 2026 is 10%. Now, that's an uptick from the last 10 years where the average has been about 7 or 8%. But this number, that 10%, it always includes anybody who got a gift or a loan from family. So that 10% skews high. The other stat is that 59% of first-time home buyers, they bought their home with their own money. And those are the people who are using zero down payment, 3%, 3.5%, or 5% programs. A 10% average doesn't represent almost 2/3 of first-time home buyers. Here's some national data for you. Virginia Beach, where there's a lot of military people who get to use their VA loan, the average is 2% down payment. Detroit's only 5%. Las Vegas is 6%. Atlanta is 8%. And I could go on and on. So what is the secret to all these people buying with a low down payment? It's that they know the full math and the full formulas. I have people reach out to me all the time and say, dude, rates and prices are so high, I got to put down a big chunk in my down payment so I can get my monthly payment low. That sounds logical, but the math there is wrong. The return on dumping big dollars into a down payment so you can get a lower monthly payment, it's shockingly little. So take a look or a listen to these numbers. Say you've got 15% down for a $400,000 home, $60,000 all saved up. Now you're trying to save another $20,000 so you can get to that 20% because you want the lowest down payment possible. Here's the math. The PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that payment on a $400,000 home with a 6.5% interest rate, if you've got 20% down, your payment is $2,439. With 15% down, it's $2,566. That's only $127 more. But that was just the PITI. We have to add in the PMI since you're under 20%, and that is a whopping $100. So the difference between 20% down and 15% down is $227 a month. Again, if you're freaking out at PMI, I talked about it in the last episode, but for the math in this one, PMI is temporary. So as soon as the home will gain 5%, either in you paying down the loan or an equity buildup, then that payment drops $100, and the difference between 20% and 15% down is only $127 a month. But we'll keep it in for the sake of this argument. $227 a month, which eventually becomes $127. Now I get it. That's real money, especially every month. But it's pocket change compared to the math of lost wealth when you're trying to save up to get to that 20%. How many months of rent are you going to have to pay while you're trying to save up the other 20 grand? If your rent is $2,500 a month, that's $30,000 a year gone while you're trying to save up the other 5%. Plus, when you own a home, you're using that 30 grand a year. It grows as you pay down the loan on your home, plus the equity growth in the home, plus the annual tax benefits. In today's high rent world, the monthly savings that you get for having a 20% down payment, it gets dwarfed by the math of home ownership when you've got the full equation. And then there's this option. What if you have the full 20% today? I was just having this discussion with a listener today. They were texting me because they're like, we're just a few months away from 20%. Okay, cool. What is the average down payment of all buyers right now? It's 15%, even people with $300,000 worth of equity. Down payments are going down. So why is that happening? What are they doing? Well, they're using the leverage strategy. This isn't a new tactic. It's a financial methodology people have been doing for years. And what you're doing is you're setting yourself up with a growth asset while you're also keeping a cash security cushion. For 20 years, I've been coaching first-time homebuyers who come to me with larger down payments to go ahead and examine the math of the leverage strategy, strategically using a low down payment option. And this technique, well, it has been tested, fine-tuned, and implemented with incredible success. Back in episode 300, which was way back in 2023, that was when interest rates were at 7%. I coached a guy. I don't know why, I can't remember now, but I nicknamed him Spartacus for some reason. You can check the show notes and listen to 300. It was a good story. But basically, he was looking at 20% down on a $750,000 home. He lived in an expensive area. That was going to be $150,000 down. And guess what? Even with that 20%, the new monthly payment, that was not in his budget. So I broke down the leverage option for him. Instead of 20%, put 10% down. Keep $75,000 in the bank. Call that your mortgage payment safety slush fund. Because the new payment at 10% down, that's going to be $850 more because you got a bigger loan and PMI. He was already stressing about the payment. So I said, all right, what if you had that slush fund and you drew $850 a month. Pull that straight from the 75 grand that you now have in the bank. And I'll tell you what, because it felt too much, let's do it at 1,000. You've got 75 months, over 6 years of an extra $1,000 a month that you can pull from your mortgage slush fund. It's money that stays liquid instead of being trapped in the home while you settle into this new budget. And you simultaneously are also reaping the big financial rewards of owning that home. It was crazy. And that was back in 2023. And since then, things are moving in different directions. And actually now you have more power. But overall, since about 2022, the game has changed, but nobody updated the standard rules of your best way to buy a home. They never bring the lost rent money into their math. It's time for an update to this outdated software. Let's run the current math on a $400,000 home purchase today. All right, say you're doing great. You've got 20%, $80,000. But what's the difference if you only did a 5% down payment, 20 grand, and then you kept 60K cash? It's in your personal security slush fund. There's a lot of old school financial advisors who are going to think I'm crazy, but let's look at the math. The monthly PITI PMI payment, that's $2,918. And yeah, that's $480 more than if you put the 20% down payment. But you get to keep $60,000 in the bank. Divide that $60,000 by 480, and you can pay the extra from that slush fund account for 125 months, over 10 years. So I've given you a couple different examples here, but let's get into the details of the math behind this. There are two key factors to remember when you're analyzing the leverage strategy for your home purchase. Number one, far too many people, they look at the numbers and they use what I call present day blinders. They get stuck on only comparing the numbers for today. Remember the truth that I have told here. The first year, that's going to be the toughest year, the hardest year financially for you owning the home. And your mortgage payment is never going to be more difficult than the first 3 years. So go ahead and embrace that. Find a solution that won't have you feeling house poor initially, but also be sure that you understand the incredible options that you're going to have as your time in the home grows. And then there's key number two, your options. After even just a few years in the home, your income grows, your payments fix, so that payment gets easier and easier every year. Maybe your PMI is going to drop off as your equity crosses that 78 to 80% threshold. And who knows, maybe even the interest rates have dipped and you refinanced into a lower rate. So in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, you're going to be in a whole new monthly budget. And now your extra mortgage payment slush fund, the cash that you kept for yourself, maybe you don't have to withdraw from that. It might not even be necessary anymore. Now you have options. Now you can look into paying down the principal on your loan, or maybe doing something that works for some people even better. It's called recasting your loan. If you just pay down the principal on your loan, that takes a chunk out of your long-term payoff, but you're going to keep the same monthly payment. Recasting your loan, it re-amortizes your loan with a smaller balance and lowers your payment. So if after 5 years, you still had $30,000 left on that 10-year, $60,000 slush fund, now you have options. Maybe then 5 years in, you've decided that you want to stay in this home forever. And you're thinking, you know what? I want to pay this off quickly so that in 20 years, we don't have a house payment on this house. Great. So you're looking at this 30 grand and you're realizing you're pretty comfortable with the monthly payment right now because of what I just described to you. So now you decide you're going to reduce the principal by $30,000, and then you're going to make one extra mortgage payment a year. And now your home is going to be paid off in 20 years. Or maybe now that you're 5 years in, you want to get really comfortable with an even lower payment so you can have a bigger cushion every month. Well, then you can recast your loan with the $30,000, which will lower your monthly payment. Or maybe you're thinking of moving in a few years. Well, now that you understand the leverage strategy, if you want to sell this first home, then you could recast your loan and increase the equity in the home because you're going to pull that out to pay for the next home. In the meantime, you'll also have a lower monthly payment, while you're saving up so you can start stacking up the savings each month. And then you'll be in a better position when you're ready to sell and trade up. Or maybe 5 years in, but you know what? Back at the very beginning, you listened to episode 506 on goals. That's where I described plan A and plan B, selling your home to buy your next home or keeping your home as a rental so you can have major wealth later on in life. So your goal is to keep this home for 20 or 30 years as a rental. You want that fatty net worth when you're in your 50s. Okay, cool. Well, now the payment for you is comfortable. So you're going to start paying that extra $480 a month right out of your pocket. And you're going to turn the $30K that you've got in your slush fund into a new home down payment fund. So now your down payment savings fund, it's got $30,000 in it. You're making the new payment and you're comfortable with that. And you're going to find a way to work with your team and keep this home and turn it into a monthly cash flow rental. And by the way, that's going to be paid off in 30 years. And that's maximum if you don't pay it down at all. You could pay it off a lot earlier than that. But either way, at that time, the home will be worth anywhere from $950 to over $1 million. And you can start thinking about that 5 years in because you've got $30,000 saved for your next leverage buy. And you're comfortable with the down payment because you've understood how the time is going to affect your monthly budget. It's all about learning the game, using the leverage to fit your lifestyle, and then buying this first home so that you can take advantage of options later. Because meanwhile, the person who played it safe and put down the full 20% because they wanted to save on that monthly budget at the beginning of their homeownership journey because they were so deathly afraid of being house poor, they never looked at the big picture or they never had it explained to them. They handed over an extra $60,000 that they can't touch because it's inside the house as their life adjusts and owning the home gets easier. It's just trapped there inside the walls. All to make the present day monthly payment when they first started more palatable. House poor, sometimes it can be very short-term thinking if you understand the full equation. This isn't a one-time purchase you're trying to get on sale today. It's a living investment that's fluid and will evolve. Staying liquid, that gives you options. And staying liquid, having money in the bank to cover that new monthly payment, that definitely is a way to not feel house poor. I've had buyers who have come for advice when they've got 15, 20, 30% down. And when they see this all laid out, when they see the present day mindset, they understand what house poor really is. And the option of leveraging the home and keeping cash, it was something that a lot of them decided to do. And they put 5% down or even 3% down. An extra payment each month, that's a solid trade-off for a big fat pile of cash in your savings account while you're owning something that you know is going to get easier each year. So truly, it's up to you. Use this knowledge to elevate how you move your own puzzle pieces in your home purchase. But what I hate to see is first-time homebuyers lock themselves into a 20% down payment because someone told them that was the right thing to do without explaining all the security, the math, and the options of the low down payment strategies. So moving ahead, a great combination for making your best choice is knowledge, home ownership, options, and cash. See what that looks like in your big picture. You can avoid being house poor and maximize your wealth by owning a home sooner rather than later. Quick side note. Now that you got the kind of the gist of all this math, you understand the slush fund and the recasting your loan options if you really want to pay down your home for long-term use and gains, I want to make sure that you never, ever get hung up again on the PMI situation. Smart home buyers know it's a very, very small price to pay, and you only pay it temporarily, but it gets you in the game. If you haven't listened to the last episode 521 where I talked about PMI or episode 464 where I did the deep dive on it, go listen now and never let PMI be something that stops you from looking at your options ever again. And while I'm at it, let me bust this big myth too. Bigger down payments, they don't mean a significantly lower interest rate. You're only going to see a big difference if you're going from like 25% down to 40% down. So run the numbers with your team and don't let this myth hold you back from discovering your options. And if you need more math to help you confidently look at buying a home instead of saving and waiting, you can get all that in the most recent Rent versus Buy episode, where you're going to learn the 6-column spreadsheet versus the incomplete 3-column spreadsheet that most buyers use. The real numbers of wealth lost, it's in the tens to hundreds of thousands. Look, I'm not a realtor sitting here saying, oh, no, you can buy a home. You can do it. Come on, let's go, because I need you to buy a home so I can pay my rent. No. This is something I've been talking about for a long time. And the purpose is to help you get ahead in the new world of home buying. Even in 2026 and going into 27, there are options. And in fact, for many of you, using a low down payment might be your only option to avoid paying rent out the nose for the next 5 or 10 years. I see you. You people with me in your ear holes right now saying, hey, this is all fine and dandy, Sidoni. My God, did I just say fine and dandy? Oh, I'm so old. Anyway, maybe you're sitting there going, dude, Sidoni, you're talking about people with 15 or 20% saved. Last time I checked, I think I've got 1.3% saved. Okay, I got you. Let me give you the math. Boost up your confidence. You don't need 10% down to start thinking about buying a home. What's happening right now in this market is power is coming back to the buyer. Seller credits are happening for you. Down payment assistance grants, they're increasing every day. And some of them you can even stack on top of each other. And you can use that cash back that you can get negotiated in your purchase to buy down your interest rate, which will lower your monthly payment. In the last lease ever program, I use a conservative target savings goal of 8%. Now, that's a 5% down payment and 3% for closing costs, but that is the maximum that you need. Using those tools I just mentioned, we routinely see buyers getting into homes for half of that, just 4%, sometimes even lower. And this is real. There are stories of people buying $300,000 homes for less than $500. That happened. That's amazing. And now look, I'm going to tell you, those stories are unreal, but what's more exciting to know is that lots of starter home buyers, like a big majority of them that we talk to the tens of thousands of people that we talk here, people buying $300,000 to $500,000 homes, they're averaging only 2 to 4% of the purchase price. And that's because they're using these tools, which are getting more and more each day for buyers. By hiring a first-time homebuyer specialist who knows how to unlock all of these tools, all of the advantages that are happening in 26 and 27, lots of regular people are buying $500,000 homes for less than 20 grand. These tactics, they're just not shared with the general first-time home buying public. And that pissed me off so much that in 2025, I crashed out in that expletive-filled episode because you deserve so much better. It sucks that it's not easy for you to find all this in your research. So let me show you how the system is working against you and why this simple technique, this is what you do to beat the system and the affordability crisis. Because the crappy truth is the real estate industry is not sharing the solutions for first-time home buyers. And the lie that's come out of that is that the problem is the current high home prices and interest rates. That's making affordability impossible for first-time home buyers. That's not true. In fact, it's total bullshit. You see, you could be shown how to create a rent replacement strategy for an affordable option so you can take control of your life and enjoy more wealth and stability. But the reality is that's not profitable for the real estate and lending companies to teach you. So millions of perfectly capable buyers are left in the dark. That is bullshit. You have options, and it's time to bring the power back to the people. You've been overlooked and ignored, and you deserve to know the solutions to give you the confidence to start your plan today, because I'm telling you, you can do this. So you're looking to buy your $400,000 home, and when you ask, how much money do I need to save? People are telling you 10 or 20%, and that is enormously overblown. 8% of a $400,000 home, that's 32 grand, and that's the max that I coach in the last lease ever program. You can lower that beast of an entry number by 50 to 75%. That's what I said. 2 to 4% is what tons of buyers are doing, and that should be common knowledge. The huge reductions happen by utilizing your first-time homebuyer specialized lender and realtor. With your lender, you're going to find more affordable loan programs that a lot of other lenders miss. Here's how the math adds up. With your unicorn lender, watch how this number drops from the 8%, $32,000 on a $400,000 home purchase. With VA and USDA, there are zero down payment loan programs. And there are other ones that might pop up in your area as well. But that's not what everybody's using. But if you can't get that, there still are 3% conventional loans and a 3.5% FHA loan, and they are all routinely used. So right off the top, that's a savings of $6,000 to $20,000. There are down payment assistance grants and programs, which, by the way, you can use more than one, stack them up. That could cover $10,000 to $30,000, some of which maybe you could use for that mortgage interest rate buy down, which means a lower monthly payment. Then you're going to stack all those savings on top of the new power of the buyer in 2026 and 27. As of August 26, there are 51.3% more sellers than buyers in the U.S. housing market, with nearly 80% of the major metro markets reporting as official buyers markets. And the result of that, in 46% of recent home sales, sellers are giving concessions to buyers. Think of it as cash back, but instead of getting, 1 or 2% back on your dinner tab from your credit card cash back program, your unicorn realtor can negotiate you $5,000, $10,000, maybe even extra $15,000 that you can use for your closing costs. And if you're buying a bigger place, it can be even more than that. So add it all up. And if you're buying a more expensive home, then those credits can be even bigger. You can hear real stories of people who used this and got themselves incredible deals. Like Shanta, she bought a $313,000 home for $31.25. Yes, that's correct. It happened. Episode 425. Or Chloe and Eduardo, they bought a $275,000 home for $120.95. That's episode 424. And Nick, he thought he was going to take 2 years to buy a home because he had to save up. He ended up buying a $312,000 home in a matter of months, and his lender told him, all right, you got to bring $4,000 to the closing. Nick was stoked. That was way lower than he thought. Oh, and then at the closing, he got $300 back, $3,700 total to buy a $312,000 home. That's episode 399. Now, I know, how the hell did these guys do that? I just told you. They learned all the options, and then they did the research, and then their first-time homebuyer specialized advisors, their unicorn team, they went out and grabbed all that stuff and showed them what they can do. And look, I'm not here to blow smoke. You're not all going to buy a home for $31. These are great stories. But as I mentioned before, the reality, which is just as amazing when you think about it, is that most buyers are finding buying solutions in the 2 to 4% of the purchase price range. That's for starter homes from $250,000 to $500,000. So on a $400,000 home, instead of getting disheartened by a $50,000 number or even the 8% $32,000 number, how quickly could you get to $16,000 and be in the range to start looking for homes that you could possibly buy when you and your team have all this information? Homies, this is so possible. Elevate your knowledge from the average buyer. When you do this, this isn't just leveling up in the game. This is unlocking every cheat code ever known and owning the game. In this market, for many of you, the incomplete information that you get from a mortgage calculator, it is so wrong and so overblown. And 99% of the real estate industry, they're not sharing with you the attainable buying solutions because you know what? Maybe they don't even know them. They probably haven't even been trained on this to share it with you. And here's data that should make you feel better. Right now, for more than half the country, we're in a K-shaped split, part going up, part going down. It's easier to buy in half the country than it was in 24 and 25. And now you have the secret formula with the First Time Homebuyer specialized low down payment programs, down payment assistance grants, and seller cash back to you. And here's something to give you even more confidence. Back in 24 and 25, when everyone said it was impossible to be a first-time homebuyer due to the high prices and the mortgage rates, we coached thousands of buyers who bought affordable homes back then. And in more than half the country today, in 26, and probably going to be going into 27 too, buyers have more power than they did the last couple of years. And the people who bought in 23, 24, and 25, none of them felt like it was risky. None of them felt house poor when they bought the home, and none of them regret their buying decision because they spent more time planning than scrolling on Zillow. They knew exactly what their numbers were, well before they went into home shopping. They were able to lock in on affordable options of possibilities where the math worked today, and it only got easier in years 2, 5, 7, and 10. And this works for people in high cost of living areas too. Yeah, especially you people out there paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month on rent. Using a rent replacement strategy, you can put that big monthly chunk of money to work for you. That's the difference. I've seen it. I've coached it. We've seen it work for $600,000 to $1 million plus condos, townhomes, or homes. And you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved away to make that purchase. Here's some math for you. You got an $800,000 condo, townhome, or home. You've got 10%, $80,000. The payment for 20% down, that's $4,800, PITI. 10% down payment, PITI plus PMI, that's $5,450. Difference of $650 a month. So you can look at buying today and paying that extra $650 a month, or you can try to save up that $80,000 to get 20% while you're still paying $4,000 a month in rent, $48,000 a year. Now, the 6-column spreadsheet from the rent versus buy episode, it's going to get uglier and uglier each year when you're losing, anywhere from $42,000 to $54,000 a year in the rent that you're paying. That's going to be big money loss that you can't get back. And you know what? There's an even more advanced math tip that you could be looking at. It's tip number 20 from the 22 tips I gave in the How to Save Up for a House series. This is in episode 520. You could temporarily reduce or redistribute your savings budget that you already have allocated every single month. Do that for the first few years of home ownership. Now, the math works far better in your favor to rearrange your monthly savings budget when you're dispersing it amongst different assets. You're doing that so you can utilize $50,000 a year that you currently send out with zero return. And now I'm going to keep going with the math, because what if you're saying, dude, the $650 a month? Yeah, even that's too much for me. Okay, cool. So if you're still too tight on your monthly budget, you got 10%. Let's look at the 3% down. You've got a $56,000 mortgage slush fund safety net. That's 86 months to pay the extra $650, 7 years of covering that payment that you were trying to save up a whole nother $80,000 to avoid. Now you've got it covered for 7 years. And what are the options that you've got? Well, simply rewind this episode where I talked to you about the 2 key factors. You have options, whether it's in refinancing or paying down the loan or recasting your loan or doing plan B and keeping the first home as a rental. So you, when you're later on in your retirement years, have not just the investments you have set up right now, but a huge, gotta be what, a $2 million giant piece of investment. I'm so excited, I ran out of words. Okay, I'm starting to sound like a nutbars, and I get it. To someone who hasn't heard me lay out the math for the last 7 years, it sounds like I'm just fired up to spread the good news because I'm really excited about the low bar of entry. But that's not the message here at all. The message is use your leverage, because especially now in the current housing and rental market, the math and the message, it's about the cost of waiting. That's the number that should terrify you, and the one I'm trying to help first-time homebuyers avoid. All the math of your loss of wealth, it's written out for you, or not written. I said it into a microphone in episode 457, Buy or Wait, and also in episode 460, Rent versus Buy. Now, listener note, I plan to update these 2 sometime this year, so just check the episode guide for Rent versus Buy or Buy versus Wait, and do the same thing for episode 512 and 513. If you're listening to this right away, those are the most current market updates, but I try to drop those every month or so check the current market updates, because you'll also hear about the loss numbers in those. The terrifying cost of waiting, that math, it's real. And I've laid it out for you. And I know that that's a lot of homework for you, but hey, would you rather be studiously informed by someone not trying to sell you anything and who's been giving the same free information away for 7 years? Or would you rather stay ignorantly blissful, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because you just didn't hear the complete math? I get real here in my dark little studio all by myself all the time. This is my labor of love to bring real power back to you. It's 20 years of experience, ready to get you the information you deserve so you can make your own informed decision. I've been sharing this since 2019. And every year, thousands of people who want to buy a home tell me, you know what, I just got to wait for better circumstances. And every year I tell them the same thing. I wish that was coming. But the data, the analytics, the professional economists, nobody sees that happening. So every year I report to you the best ways that you can take advantage of what we've got. It's all about the rent replacement strategy. And this is why, because reality number one, your rent's a total loss. And it's been going up for 15 years now. And I just saw a report that said that Zillow is forecasting a flat rent year in 2026. Hey, great. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a zero rent increase this year, that's not going to make a dent in all the other exorbitant increases that have happened. Flat rent is still 100% loss. And then reality number two, the crash you're waiting for isn't coming. For years, I've told you low inventory means that we're not going to have a crash. And people fight me every single time I say it, even though I have the data and the forecasts and the predictions of all the top economic minds to back it up. And this year, I wish I had different news, but it's still happening. If you want to hear all the facts I've been sharing with First Time Homebuyers, and I've been talking to my people since 2012 about this, because that's when the inventory problem really started to take focus. Get educated on the story, the data. I know it feels illogical, but the data is the reality. The most recent updates are in episode 457 and 512. And I'm going to have more information as the months keep coming. Hopefully, we're going to see more inventory towards the end of the year, but even a little bit isn't going to be enough to change things where we're going to see a correction or a crash. And reality number three, interest rates, they're not riding in to rescue you either. And again, I wish that was different. But today's buyer, you just need to prep for a rate around 6% to 6.5% for the next 6 to 12 months. And reality number four, the 2026 update. For the first time in decades, we actually do have parts of the country where we're seeing home prices stay flat and sometimes even going down. So perhaps you're not going to see crazy good price appreciation in some parts of the country for the first few years if you end up buying a home. Now, I'm never going to BS you. That's a fact. But please don't let a flat market, or maybe even prices dipping a little bit, don't let that put you in a waiting mode trying to time your home purchase at the local bottoming out of home prices. There are two problems with that. Well, actually three. One, timing that is tough. And if you can do that, then damn, you're a wizard, Dumbledore. And problem number two, unless we have an economic meltdown, the demand, it is outpacing supply and it will continue to. And for years I've been saying that, and nothing is going to drop big time when there's still such low inventory. And three, and this is the whole point, in today's market, the rent replacement strategy doesn't even need big home appreciation or pretty much any appreciation for you to win. It's financially more beneficial for you. So I said that was a problem. It's not really a problem. See, in the advanced 6-column spreadsheet that I keep talking about from the rent versus buy episode, you can see the math. The lost rent, that's a guaranteed loss no matter what home prices do. And the principal, you're going to pay that down every month. That's column 5. That becomes a forced savings account. And that builds your equity, whether the market's flat or flying high. And you also get the gains of column 6, the tax benefits if you're a homeowner. So even in a dead flat price year where your home doesn't go up in value at all, waiting still loses on lost rent. Delayed equity doesn't even have to be part of the equation. You've also got tax benefits and you're using your rent to pay down an appreciating asset. Maybe not this year, but it will. The appreciation you get as a homeowner, that's the bonus. It's not the whole meal. And yeah, it sucks that you missed the giant appreciation of the early 2020s. But don't blame me. Blame your parents. They had you too late. That's not my fault. But this is precisely why I'm raging that no one else is looking out for you and protecting you. Because in this market, you need to know this stuff. I don't want you to keep renting and wake up in 2030 and realize all the potential financial gains that you've lost. A rent replacement strategy is more beneficial for a renter, even in a boring year where your home doesn't increase in value 50 grand. You still win. And you got to believe that. You got to know the math and are confident in it because you're still here right now. So if you're still listening to me freak out and rant in my little dark room, then please get in on this math. Understand these concepts. You all deserve to have the middle class unlocked for you. And the reality of the housing market is the next 3 to 5 years, we're not going to see what we saw before. So you need to see a new path where you're losing your rent and getting whatever benefits are available to you as a homeowner. And that's what I've been trying to show you, even if corporate real estate doesn't want to teach you this. Each of you is going to have your own best path. And my mission is to make sure you make that decision fully informed. For a lot of you, a low down payment, that's the right move for a ton of you out there, but not everybody. So again, I'm not going to BS you with the slimy sales pitch. Here are some situations when maybe you should put a bigger down payment down, or at the very least, have a bigger savings cushion. One, if a low down payment strategy leaves you with zero cushion. The whole slush fund strategy only works if you keep the liquid cash. And if you're putting 3% down, and that means that you close on a house with an empty bank account, no reserve to draw, well, that's real house poor, and that's a no. The play is a low down payment with some kind of a slush fund, not a low down payment and a prayer. And number two, over the last few years, there is a growing number of investment bros. They are selling the rent cheap and invest the difference theory. Okay, look, I got to be straight. My answer to that is the leverage math from the rent versus buy episode. It says that the 3% appreciation on a $400,000 asset is roughly a 37% return on the same cash that you would have invested. Plus, you have the forced savings of principal by pay down. Plus, you have the annual tax write-off. Plus, when you do sell the home, and this is the one a lot of them really don't put in their equation, the profits of that investment get something that nobody else does. That's the capital gains tax exemption of $250,000 if you're on your own or $50,000 if you're married. So I'm not dodging their argument. I'm out mathing it. But you know what? Cool. I mean, if you really want to build a pile of money, yes. You can beat a home investment if you live in the cheapest rental available for 15 years and you invest every cent of the extra money you're saving into your investments. But you have to live in a one-bedroom apartment for years and actually be disciplined and really put the money into the investment every single month. If that's your thing, go for it. That's better for you. I'm not going to judge anybody for doing something out of the box. Hell, I started a podcast at 49 years old to help the lowest buyers on the real estate totem pole. Who am I to judge anybody? And the third time that using a big down payment might be better for you is if you're thinking this is your forever home and the new payment's not going to stress you out too much, or maybe you're thinking this is for sure going to be your forever home and you've got some kind of big inheritance or something coming in the next couple of years. Sure, go ahead and do that. But all in all, the theory of leverage, even when people are talking about their investments, every single equation, people are going to say, well, it's just the way you manage money. No. This isn't about managing money. That's what you do with extra. The rent replacement strategy and the leverage involved with owning a home has something that no other investment formula has: rent money. That's lost, and that is an obligation every single month. All right, this is an important episode, so let me bring it home with the bullets. The 20% rule is a myth. In 2026, the whole country is putting less down, 15% and falling, because the smart money thing that people are doing most is they're keeping cash liquid. Next one, a huge down payment doesn't mean giant monthly savings in your monthly payment. Next, a mortgage safety slush fund is how you never are going to feel house poor. And PMI is a small temporary toll that's a privilege that allows you to own a home sooner for pennies when you're looking at the full financial picture. And there is no major forecaster that sees a crash coming anytime soon. Also, interest rates are not going to be dropping to save you. And rents, keep in mind, they're a total loss, even if they stay flat or only go up a little bit. And every single data point for 2026 points to the same thing. A rent replacement strategy is the only way that you're going to be able to win over the next 5 years in this housing market because the strategy has shifted. 2026 smart buyers are using leverage, and they're not doing it because they see some huge gains that are going to happen over the next 5 years, like 50% like we saw post-COVID. That's done. The smart buyers are understanding the entire formula, and they're doing it to avoid the gigantic losses of renting for the next 2, 3, 5 years. The options are there for the $200,000 buyer with only $2,000 saved, or the $800,000 buyer with $100,000 in the bank. The number that you think you need is oftentimes off by tens of thousands of dollars. With the right strategy supported by the math and the numbers, it's not rocket science. It's just a formula that not enough people are explaining. Investors run numbers like this all the time, but homeownership has variables like no other. And the math is supremely tilted for those who own as soon as they can to get out of the rent trap. Things are different now, man. And the greatest loss in American wealth right now, it's due to one thing. The average age of a first-time homebuyer in the 80s was in the 20-year-olds. But since 2025, the average age of first-time homebuyers is 40 years old. That's ages 20 to 40. That's 2 decades of rent being paid. And big losses in the 6-column rent versus buy spreadsheet. I know I keep referencing that, but you got to check out the most recent rent versus buy episode. That 6-column spreadsheet formula there is really going to help you gain your confidence. It's math. It's not hype. So first-time home buyers, they're getting shut out, but not the fully informed ones. I've seen it firsthand. We don't average 40 years old around here, and I want you all to succeed. And I'm sorry if I was a little angry earlier, but I'm just not happy with the lack of information because I know that so many of you are clamoring for solutions. You can do this. And now you know the secret that freaking shouldn't be a secret in the first place. I'm going to put the episode guide in the show notes, and you can find all those episodes I was talking about. And of course, you can always go to howtobuyahome.com. There's an Ask David button if you have questions, or if you want to start your plan right now, you can ask me for a local unicorn team and run all this by them. You're not in any obligation to buy a home. You're saying, hey, show me the plan that psycho dude who locked himself in a room told me about. You don't need the number that everyone tells you need to buy a home. You never did. The industry just never bothered to teach anybody. Well, guess what? Now you know. Go get your team and run your numbers. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.